when you go down and work with, where did I actually get that pattern from who and why, then you can start to change this and feel that when you start to release that trauma, there's room for your soul in your body. When you are tense, there's no room. When you are relaxed, there are room. And that's how I see it. It's like we have to heal up in what's tense in us, where we are frozen or where we are stuck. Because when we are stuck or frozen, life energy and soul is life. It cannot move around. It cannot feel somehow. You cannot expand your essence and your soul out in the everyday life. It's just a little part of you or over your head, just waiting, like an aeroplane that's just waiting to touch ground. It cannot touch ground. It cannot come into the body before the body is relaxed and ready to say yes to the soul.
Welcome to the Spiritual Forum, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. I'm very excited about my guest today. I'll introduce her in just a minute, but I want to remind you to sign up for my newsletter at thespiritualforum.org, and then you'll get a weekly information from me about my latest episode, also my reflections on that episode, an affirmation or a thought, and all the links and all sorts of other stuff. But that goes out every Wednesday morning. And this podcast will go out on Tuesday morning. And I'm coming up really close on episode 300. So it's a big milestone for me. Yeah, big deal.
So
I think you're going to be, I think you're going to be probably 298 or 297 or something like that. Very close. So my guest today is Marzcia Techau. And she comes to us today from Copenhagen. I just love talking to people around the world. Talked to a lot of people in the States, but this one's really fun. She has a master's degree in biology, and she's a speaker, author, spiritual teacher, clairvoyant counselor, healer, Reiki master, and somatic experience practitioner working with Peter Levine's somatic experience method. For the past 23 years, she's worked with a blend of scientific and spiritual understanding. Marzcia has recently published a book called Your Soul, Your Life, A Guide to Healing and Self-Healing. And that's why I was really interested in having her on, because the self-healing part, I think, is really important. And we'll get to that in a minute. This book introduces different ways to cooperate with the spiritual world, including exercises for self-healing. While her book covers a broad range of healing needs, today we're going to be focusing our conversation on healing the inner child. So welcome, Marzcia.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And that we talk about inner child work, because it's a very important work that you can do yourself, and it have a tremendous effect on your development as a grown-up when you also take your inner child in your hand.
I can't wait to dig into it. I really can't. But first, I'm just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. You said you'd play.
Yeah.
The first one's a little bit big, but succinctly, what would you say your message is?
My message in my life or my soul or my book?
Oh, no, in your life and your soul.
Okay, good. So it's what I deeply feel is a kind of life purpose for me is actually to be a channel for the divine and information giving and creating a healing space and holding a healing space, not only for humans, but also animals, Mother Earth, the universe, and be a part of that. So I see myself as a kind of servant.
I love it. We definitely need that. We definitely need that. So thank you so much for that. I was just gonna ask, what do you think the world most needs today?
Yes, I answered that. Yes.
I think you kind of did. I think you kind of did.
But it is this kind of that we wake up to have this awakening that everybody of us has this divine soul and has the power to make a big difference in ourselves and in our everyday life and for others. And I really feel deeply that that's very important that we remember that. I really like to, push that fire in people, their own soul fire, and make that glow. And just, I'd really love to see that light shine when people just, be are themselves and just do what they meant to do.
Yes, yes. I mean, if we all just accessed our divine selves, I mean, even if some of us did for just a short period of time, I think the world would just explode with radiant
Yes,
love. I mean, it would be so different. Just
yes,
dramatically different. Everything would shift. So
yeah,
I'm with you on that. And last, what for you, what is a favorite place for you or a thing that you like to do?
yes. Mm.
Or what does your inner child like to do?
Yes, oh, that's my favorite place is actually when my soul is connected with the divine. And it could be when I'm together with people, it could be when I'm in nature, it could be when I'm passionate about something. So it's much like an inner place, but the outer surroundings helps me to get into that inner place. So nature normally helps me to get into that inner place, and contact with the spiritual world helps me to that, and connection with loving people helps me to be in that place. So it's more like an emotional state or consciousness state that I really love.
Oh, that's beautiful. That can happen anywhere.
Yes, it can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I love
it's
that. It's a
and
space in
that's
consciousness.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And what I like to do, yes, I have really many things I like to do. So I it's a very difficult lot of
Just pick
things.
one.
So I yeah, sometimes I just like to be quiet and just look at the flowers and just be in the sun and do nothing. And other times it's also this exchange between humans and the healing process, the inspiring connection with other people. That's
Yeah.
really, really, really nice.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing a little bit about you. And now I want to dig into a little bit more about your spiritual journey. I know some of it's in your book. You kind of start with how you were born. And so anyway, in 5 or 10 minutes or so, not more than that, can you just kind of share what was most important in your journey that got you to where you are today? Yeah.
So the short way in my spiritual journey is actually that I'm born. Um, I'm highly sensitive, so I sense a lot of things, mostly emotions. So what my primary spiritual skill or ability is actually this clear emotional state that I sense other people very much. And that was when I was a child quite overwhelming for me. So I also try to cope with that in a way where I am connected very much with animals and with nature. And I was brought up at a small farm, not a big farm, just a small farm with a few horses and pigs and chickens and all of that. And and I use a lot of time with them, as with the animals and with the nature. That was a way where I connected and had this deeper level of contact with nature, the feeling of being in one with nature and this heart to heart connection with animals. So, in that way, I trained that contact heart to heart, and I trained this contact with nature, this oneness with nature. And actually, that's a big part of my spiritual path to have that connection. So I was actually drawn myself away from people, from other children, from grown-ups, because I was really they said one thing and I felt that they were another. So I'm feeling okay, and I could really feel, no, you're not. And I was talking straight to the soul or to the emotions, and people was talking from the brain, and I couldn't really understand all that. It was not safe for me. So In that way, I was a little in my own world. And when I got age around 18, I started to have dreams about death that I dreamt them a week or so before they happened. And I was really scared about that because first it was like, okay, I did it one time. And here it was a sheep. So it was one of my dear sheep's friends. So for me, my animals were my friends. And I was on Iceland and I dreamt that she was dying. And I was just like, oh no, you're not going to die. Please. I was away for 3 weeks. And then I wrote a postcard to actually to the sheep, but to my parents because "Oh, I'm all right." But then zigzag keep hanging on. I will be home in a week. And what happened there was that my parents drove down the hill, opened the post box, took out my postcard where I had this greeting for my sheep, and they have just buried her. And it's like, and then they drove to pick me up in the airport. So
Oh.
I had that message a week before she died. And then some months later, when I traveled to Thailand, I dreamt that the horse that I was going home to start riding on, that she was lying just dead on the field. And I didn't dare to phone home. I think it was around 5 weeks before I phoned home. And of course, she was dead with no reasons at all. She was just 4 years old. There shouldn't be any problems. And she was just dead. So I had those two really scary experiences that I couldn't explain in no other way, that somehow I have got the information that they were dying. And I was 18 and 19 at that time. And from that time on, it was like a way in my system where I knew there was something else. But I was so afraid of seeing dead people. So I was really like, I will not see anything. I will not have anything to do with it. But the problem was actually that when, as every other farmer girl, I had to go into the big city to study. So I had to go to the university to study. And then I moved into it was not a hospital anymore, but it has been a home for poor people for many, many years. Single women, widows, and so on. And there was a lot of dead people there. It's like they were
Ah.
everywhere. So I was just lying. I was around 20 at that time, 21, and I was just lying on the floor on my mattress, and I was seeing all of these women without legs just going through the walls. It's like, oh. And I was like, not happening, not happening, not happening. And it was like I had so many experiences that I couldn't neglect them anymore. But then I thought, when I was around 25, I thought, okay, it's safe to do healing. So I take a Reiki 1 course, healing course, self-healing, no danger. And I also got the teacher to teach us how to heal animals. It's like home safe, no problem. But as soon as I got my Reiki, my abilities opened even more. And then I started really much to sense dead people, guides, colors, angels. Everything was just too much. And then when I went in I was around 28, 29, I fell in love. And when you fell in love, your heart opens. And when my heart opens, my heart energy, my sensory system, my emotional state was just expanding. And then the dead people were really, really much intense. And I dared to describe a dead person for the first time for my spouse. So I'm married now, so to my spouse, and the dead person was actually recognized, and I was like, okay, it's actually real. I couldn't say to myself, I'm just imagination. It's not. It's only my mind. Suddenly, it was like, okay, it's real. And then my whole world was just like collapsing because I had built so thick walls around me to keep it out. And now I couldn't. I was like, there was this, it's like, there was this line that was broken now. I couldn't go back. So I just have to find out how I could be taught, how I should manage my skills. And then I went to school for where I was trained in my psychic abilities, and I started to, I could lock, I could close for the contact. I could be myself and I could open and be a channel. So I learned how to control it. And that made me safe. And then I found out that I was really good at this. And then I started to have clients, and then the rest is history. So the first part was actually not really something I wanted to have in my life. I just wanted to go away. I just wanted to be a normal person. I wanted to end my biology studies and have a normal life. But my life changed really much. So in that way, I just started to, have my spiritual work, and I love it. And it has been the best thing in my life ever, that I said yes to the possibility, to my potential. And I start every day, I just say even more yes to my potential. And I really love to do what I do. And I'm so grateful.
Well, there's a lot in your story. I think first, I think most people who are deeply spiritual were born with some sensitivity that's
Yeah.
kind of beyond what others around them had. But you seem like yours was like sensitivity on steroids, like much more. you know, I was a very sensitive child, very sensitive to animals too. I couldn't understand this world that
Mm.
I lived in where animals are treated so poorly. And I just always, my heart went out to every single one of them. But there's something in my own psyche, and it's probably in the inner child stuff we'll talk about, where it's too much,
Yeah.
it's hard to live in this world. And but, there's something about you that stayed open
Yeah.
and didn't close off really young. And I think a lot of us come in this way and then boop, something happens and we close off. And I know we'll get into that conversation, but I'm really kind of amazed that you I also think, though, that you have a special gift, and I don't know that we all have the same gifts. I think we have different gifts. I think
Yeah.
we all are intuitive in some way, but there are people who that's their special superpower.
Mm.
And what I love about your story that you said most recently is that you said yes to it. You
Yeah.
said yes to this, and I think that's how the universe presents gifts to us and opportunities and purposes. We can say no. We can
Mm.
say no. We can say, I refuse to do that. And I've done that a couple times and I've changed my mind. But usually when when God or spirit or the universe says, this is for you, my first response is usually, no, no,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
somebody else. No. But there's something about that saying yes. And then everything lines up for
That's right.
you
Yeah.
then. And so once you say yes to this amazing potential that you've been given, this gift you've been given, now everything kind of lines up and starts making sense, and your
That's
life
great.
starts to have an order to it.
Yeah. And that's actually, that's when you're following your soul, then you're also following your path. And when you're following your path, that is the possibility to open up and also to be a part of something greater than yourself. And I think that's true for every potential. If it's spiritual potential, or if it's that you're good at math or something else, it's like when you do deep, what's inside of you, what you're really here for, then you are fitting in. It's like a puzzle where all the puzzles are there, and when everybody of us just take our place, everything's all
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
so so it's like that when we say yes to
It
what's really
is. Yeah.
us. And then
Yeah.
it could be in anything. You could be a very good nurse. You could be a very good fireman. You could be it's that yes to what's really is the fire within your heart.
Well, and I think I don't know how it is in Denmark, but in the US, I don't think the education system is designed to help you get in touch with your soul so that you can discern your purpose, your gifts. We're kind of either consciously or unconsciously placed in different funnels. You can be a
Yeah.
doctor. I mean, it's not like we're told that, but there's a social thing about what good careers are and where you can make money and how you can be successful. And people find themselves in boxes doing something their whole life.
Yeah.
Their whole life. I mean, my husband has a cousin who always wanted to be an engineer, but his father directed him into accounting. Well, I think that's unusual because I mean, if you want to be an engineer, go be an engineer. You'll
Yeah,
be very
please.
successful being an engineer. The world needs them. But so he went into accounting, and I think he spent much of his life unsatisfied,
Yes,
dissatisfied, and
exactly.
yeah, and so, like, this is our life, and I think you make that point in near the end of the book, if I remember correctly, that, we may have multiple lives, we don't know that, we probably do, but we don't have this life again.
Yeah, it's the only one we have. Yeah, in this
Right,
constellation, and
right.
it's precious, and we have to follow our calling, because what's really interesting is when you follow your calling, you also have this satisfaction. You are satisfied with your life, and it's fulfilling you. So when you use a lot of time in something that's not fulfilling you, how should you be satisfied? And when you're not satisfied, then you try to do something else to be satisfied, but you will not really be satisfied because it's the wrong food. When you are doing what fulfills you, you are getting the right food. And when you are having that energy that gives you, nurture you, or gives you what you need, the energy you need, then you have more energy to give out. And in that way, it gets into a positive um, chain reaction. And when you do something that's not fulfilling, it's a negative chain reaction. So that's why actually in the book, my purpose there is really much to guide people into being in contact with their soul and living accordance with their soul. What that ever must mean for them, it's different. Everybody of us is unique. We have our own path, but we have a lot of path that follows us around. All other people are following their path. We're not alone in our path, but we are the only one that can actually go exactly in that path that's yours. So in that way, we can have someone that helps us to follow our path, but the other ones also have to follow theirs. And that's a greater picture, like a carpet that's, um, I can't remember the English word for that, but when you saw something and it's like, yeah,
It's, like,
it's,
synchronized or
yes,
it's
yes,
yeah, like dancing together.
yes.
So what do you think is happening to the soul when we're off our purpose? What is actually happening to the soul?
And the soul is okay, but you're not, because you're not connected with your soul. But our soul, I have never seen a sad soul. I have met a lot of sad people because they were not connected with their soul. But our soul is full of positive energy, potential, resources, life force, and it's just waiting. It has time enough. It lives for eternal. It's only our body that doesn't have time enough. It's just this life that doesn't have time enough. But our soul has time. If it's not this time, then it will be next life. So, so the soul is just waiting for you to be ready to follow your path. And when you're struggling to find your path, maybe that's a part of the soul's journey this time. So when you're struggling, it's not because you're not living in accordance with your soul. Maybe it's a part of the soul's development. Because all the struggles that you have, your challenges you have in your life, when you're going through them, you grow. And many times that becomes something that you actually can contribute to in the life of helping others. So trauma, challenges, whatever, is also a part of the soul's journey. But saying yes to living your life instead of just trying to survive in a survival mode and do what's expected of you and forget yourself in that. That's a really important thing, to take your own decision. I will say yes to me.
I love that. I will say yes to me.
Yeah,
That's an
good.
amazing yeah. That's a really good affirmation. I say yes to me.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning. I say yes to me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you can follow, you can feel that energy that's in that, that power that is in that.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Yes Man? It's with, Jim Carrey. It's an American thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
little bit silly.
Yeah.
The movie is about he took on this challenge just to yes to everything that came into his life. It wasn't about his soul, but I think his soul path was to learn to say yes.
Yeah.
And so all these funny things happen because he said yes to all sorts of strange things. But it's a really motivating movie, or it's inspirational, I should say, because like what if we just spent a day or two or a week just saying yes to everything that life brought us?
Yeah.
Particularly though, like you say yes to our own self, our own soul.
Yeah.
Say yes to what our soul is calling us to. I think a lot of people have trouble discerning that, and that sounds like something that you help people with.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting, our soul, when we follow our soul, it's like rewarding. We are, good things is happening. You're feeling good. You are having a better, it's like you have more energy to open your heart. You have more energy to stay in your life. You're more secure within yourself because your intuition is stronger and your soul is divine and connected to the divine. So you also have a connection where you have much more contact with what supports you. You're a present in yourself and in your soul and in your everyday life in another way. And you feel supported. And in that way, it's a positive thing that happens. So it's there's so many things that really are connected. So when you say yes to that, it gets you in a positive vibe or vibration. When you say you just follow the anger or the fear, or it's actually it's holding you in another path where everything there's a limitation, there's fire, you have to fight for everything, you have to win, you have to, or it will never go all right. It's like it's really scary for people to say yes to how powerful they are and how gentle they are and how loving they are. It's like, or can I really deserve to be loved like that? Oh yes, you can. We are all loved. And it's like, no, I'm not, I haven't earned that. It's not for me. No, the other ones. There are so many beliefs that pulls you away from just being your soul, being that magnificent person you are. It's like it's,
Mm.
and many of those beliefs or uh, encoding things are from your childhood. So in that way, when you go down and work with, where did I actually get that pattern from who and why, then you can start to change this and feel that when you start to release that trauma, there's room for your soul in your body. When you are tense, there's no room. When you are relaxed, there are room. And that's how I see it. It's like we have to heal up in what's tense in us, where we are frozen or where we are stuck. Because when we are stuck or frozen, life energy and soul is life. It cannot move around. It cannot feel somehow. You cannot expand your essence and your soul out in the everyday life. It's just a little part of you or over your head, just waiting, like an aeroplane that's just waiting to touch ground. It cannot touch
Mm.
ground. It cannot come into the body before the body is relaxed and ready to say yes to the soul.
Well, that's really well put. I think that's a great summary. Let's pivot now to the inner child because it sounds like this is a good time to get into it. You do talk about the different phases of being a child
Yeah.
and where we can cut ourselves off from our soul. I don't know if that's the right terminology or not, but let's just talk about that first and then go into what we can do to heal our inner child.
Yes. So when I work with inner child, I actually start with the embryo, because when you are in your mother's life, your mother's womb, there is a lot of things happening there. You are developed from there. So if there is any problems during those 9 months, it will affect your organs, your nervous system, And it will also affect the feeling of being safe. If it was a happy time in as a fetus, then you would, relax and just let yourself flow around and, move and get the food you need and relax. And your nervous system would, you know, be in a resting state where, oh, I feel for jumping. And then you jump. And, if that was that, then your nervous system had developed itself to be relaxed and tense and happy and movement. But when there is some problems in that 9 months, then your system will be like this because you feel your mother very clearly. And there's also investigation or research that shows that you can actually connect with your father as well because our sensory system is developed during that time as well. So we can sense our mother and we can sense our father and we can sense what happens between them. And we also, we are lying in our mother's unconscious place, where we put everything we cannot really cope with just down there, and that's where you're lying. So you also lie in your mother's unhealed shit. So you both lie in that. So in that state, you can actually have a lot of things that, oh, it's not nice. Oh, no. And when you do that as a little child, then you disconnect a little from your soul. When you are just like, normally when there's pictures that shows when, the egg cell and the sperm cell are connecting like that. There's a little light, like a little flash of energy.
Yeah.
And for
it's
me,
amazing.
It's there where I see the soul is entering. It's like there is an energy development where the soul comes in and starts already there. And that's where I see that the little embryo gets life and soul and cells are connecting and they work like this. Just developing. If you already comes into survival mode when you are in that, then some of the soul cannot continue to be integrated in the body. And so if you have problems with actually from birth finding yourself able to connect or ground or be present, then may be a very good reason for that in those 9 months. So it could be coming back to that and create a healing space for the little one so you can experience the feeling of being safe in those 9 months and then develop yourself again, redevelop. So it's like a reboot and connection. And then the soul and the body can start to integrate with each other again. And in that way, you can feel the connection and you can keep the contact to your soul and your body at the same time. So the embryo state and the fetus state is quite important to look at. So many of my students that has the feeling of not really belonging, never really felt comfortable with the living world, we have to go back to that state and help the little one. It's not like, of course, you see a little one that is this healing space, and it could be, an angel holding the space, or, it could be also sometimes Virgin Mary standing there holding the little one, and it's like everything start to relax, and the little one start to grow from a locked place, and it's like imprint in your nervous system and in your body organs and also in your bones. So it's quite a change because suddenly something happens that gets the life force in you to reconnect, and you start to feel that you're present and you can be alive in your present life because you are reconnected a place where you're disconnected. So when I work with inner child work, I try to look after where did the disconnect happen. So it could be already before you're born. And you do not know it because your brain and remembering, you cannot remember it because it's not there, but it's in everything you have experienced in your whole life. It's in your nervous system, it's in your cells, it's like a body remembering, also emotion. So you will not have any mental remembering, but the rest of you will remember everything. So the next part is being born. When you're born, it's actually the first time your body is really, okay, is it strong enough to survive? Remember how many children that died in this birth situation. So it's like, if you're strong enough to be born, then you're ready to live. So it's like, it's the first one where the body will have to, be strong and come out and run. It's like that. And if there's some problems in those, when you're when you're going to be born, it could be that you're actually struggling. No, I will not go out. Sorry, I didn't. Please take me back. It's not. No. So that could be a lot of things there. It could also be that there is some frightens because the mother is afraid of losing the child, and the child is nearly dying, afraid of losing mother, and there could be a lot of trauma. So there could also be things that are really important to look at in that situation. And then you are born at last. It's like, what if there's no one really to take you in? You're coming from the spirit world where you are more in a telepathic contact, emotion to emotions. You are in a really loving place where you are met deeply and truly all the time. And then you are born into a physical world. You cannot do anything. You just lie there. You cannot, you have this amazing soul that's just waiting to come out and do things. And you have to wait really many years before you can do that. So it's like, and then if you have some, if your parents are not emotional, really good connected, then you will feel abandoned and lost. And maybe you will be so sad that you cannot connect with the spiritual team, that you are always connected with your spiritual team. But if you close down for that connection because your parents are not able to keep your heart open somehow. So in that way, it's really important that the parents look into first year or so. It's really important that this feeling of being secure and nursing and warm and met emotionally is very important there, because you're used to that when you are in the spirit world. And if you should connect to the spirit world and your soul and the living world at the same time, then this loving feeling is important. So again, I will look into how was the feeling there, how was the care there, what was the trauma there, and what was good there. So it could be from the first couple of years. And then the next really interesting thing is when you start to talk and walk. Then there's like, you have this little world, and then it gets bigger. You can experience things. The next thing is when you're around 3 years old. There you can talk, you can walk. And many 3 years old are now in a position where they can say, no, thank you. And they can be, a 3 years old person is like, it's like they have a heart. Their heart is so open. They are like, they love everything or they hate everything. It's like they have all this access to their heart. And I sense a little like that the 3-year-old is like a teenager. It's the first where you are really trying to set your own borders, and you also go a little too far. And you are also, you try a lot of things. So the thing is, when a 3-year-old is saying no, it's also training to say no, have your own borders, be, true to yourself. And it's also even how difficult you are. You can go back to mom or dad and they love you. And it's like, okay, so it's this love and this being, forgiven for being really, really, really impossible. It's like when you have this, if you get this really feeling of, okay, I'm loved after all, and then you also start to find out you have a body, you have your borders. So that's a good way. But if you have problems there, you can actually, when there is trauma or you lose someone or you move or something happens, then your heart can close down very much because it's actually a time where the heart is growing up, your nervous system is growing up. There's a lot of things happening there. You are so full of energy and growth and experiences. And if something happens there, you can actually close down quite much. So this period time is very important to find out, okay, what happens here? Because the themes that goes on there or the blockage or the trauma that comes in there can actually really much affect the little one into adulthood as well. So I look in, okay, so is the problem with opening the heart? Was there something scary or difficult at that time? Then we have to go back and heal that. But the good thing is that when we go to the teenage year, we can go and work with it again because it's the same thing that happens just in another constellation. So the
Let
three
me
year
ask
olds,
you,
yeah,
I just want to ask a quick question and let you go on. Because I don't think it always has to be trauma. You correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
It could be like your environment, like if you're born into or you're nothing really happened to you so much, but the environment was a
yeah,
certain way, and so you started making uh, judgments or decisions about that. And for example, my own self, I've had to look back at my life and realize that I was born into a family that was grieving,
yeah,
and I I had no recollection of any of that. But only looking back and realizing that, my father lost his whole family within like 18 months before I was born. And he was so majorly affected by it that he couldn't even he tells me he couldn't even speak their names for like 10 years. So he was internalizing it. And I have no recollection of that being a part of my life, but it had to affect me in some way
yeah,
that there was this grief going on in my family. And I think for me, it made me I think I came into being like I don't want to cause trouble for these people.
yeah, yeah,
Like they've got a lot going on here. I'm not gonna cause trouble here. I'm gonna try to I'm not gonna cause trouble. I think that was one of my things in childhood, but it wasn't like anything that overtly happened to me. And I just wanted to make that point because I think sometimes people are looking for this trauma thing, like what
mm.
happened to me? Did I fall? Was I left at the mall? These kinds of things.
Yeah,
And
yes,
some
yeah,
did I get lost? And sometimes it's just what's, I think, going on with your family. Is
yeah.
that right?
It's really right, and it's really good that you take it up because it's some of the really important things to understand that when you're a child, when that's the same thing I tried to explain when we're a fetus. It's the same thing that happens when you are a little newborn and up to at least when you're around 6, 7 years. You cannot regulate your own nervous system. So you regulate your nervous system in accordance to your parents. And if they're not well regulated, you will actually just adapt that dysregulation. And you will be, it's like your brain waves are in a level at that time when you are embryo and up to around 7 years. You are the same wave as when you are going into a deep uh, hypnosis
Mhm.
mode. And that would say that you are very much one-to-one affected by your surroundings. It's incorporated in you and in your nervous system, in your cells, in your beliefs, just by being there. Your surroundings is actually incorporated within you. And if that's not surroundings that supports your soul, then you will actually start to develop patterns and beliefs that are away from your inner core. And you will continue
Mhm.
to live that. And it's actually very, very difficult to change that. But it's possible if you look into inner child work.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
one thing is the trauma that you can experience. The other thing is really much the trauma that your parents has, or again, the interaction between them. all the surroundings that you are in, because that affects you deeply. And what I normally work with is like a kind of detoxification of the surroundings energy within your cells, your beliefs, your emotions, your thoughts. So you start to detox from what's not yours, and actually much more sense what's your sense or yours. So I have a healing meditation. I have some free healing meditation on my website, Marzcia.com. And one of them is called the bucket exercise. It's because in
Okay.
Danish it's like pot exercise, but I changed the word. It's not very good in English. So I just have to translate it to bucket instead of pot. But in Danish, pot is like a bucket. So it's like,
Okay.
so no pot exercise, just a bucket exercise, where you actually can let go of emotions, energy that's not yours. So it's like getting it up to the buckets, and the buckets will be transferred to the light, and you will be filled of healing light. And then you will start to find out what your own light is, and your cells will be connected with your soul and your own light, and then it will start a positive development. But this detoxification from negative environment within you or within your parents is very, very important, because it's like you cannot really, it could be that there wasn't one specific episode. It's just like everyday bad feeling.
Yeah, like a soup. You're in a
Yes.
soup of negativity or
Yes.
bad
And,
feelings.
and,
Yeah.
and that will actually affect you very much. When you
Yeah.
come around the year 6 to 7, your neocortex, your normal brain, your grown-up brain starts to work, and your rational, logical brain starts. But up till around that, you're much more like an emotional being that's connected with emotions around you and inside you, and you're one-to-one with that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so deeply connected into yourselves, your beliefs, and the what you think about yourself. And as you say, it wouldn't be a burden. No, sorry, you didn't say a burden, but you,
Yeah, but that's true though. Yeah, it was like I'm not going to cause trouble.
yes,
These my parents, they had a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and then I came in and all of this grief, and it's like I'm not going to be a difficult child. I wasn't
no,
going to do that. And I don't think it was because I was a good child. I don't think
no,
it was that. It didn't feel like that was a natural thing. It was like that was my little tentacles that went out, whatever empathy that was. I could just sense that
yes.
that's what I needed to do here.
And the next thing is, you didn't want to be, and you didn't want to be troublesome for them. But the next thing is, you started to feed them energy, so mother would be all right and father would be happy.
Yes,
So that's
yes,
another
yes.
path that a development that will start there is when your child, as a child, it's really important to remember that a child cannot survive without your parents.
Mhm.
And what happens there is you develop different patterns that will secure the survival of your parents. And if there is some disharmony here, then you will just, close down for yourself and your contact to your soul, and just be trying to fix everything. And that means that you go away from your center to help people. And that again means that you will have the trouble of finding out who yourself are and what gives you energy.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
then over time, as a grown up, many people develop a kind of exhaustion that they cannot do it anymore. It's like
mhm,
it's too much, because they have been taught very early that it's their job to carry the others. Emotional energy miss, it could be physical, it could be practical. What can I do? And they cannot feel that they deserve, or it's okay, or there is calm around so you can take care of yourself. So that's some of the really important things to look at in a child work. which patterns are developed and why. Because when we are as little as that, and we do what we can for our parents to survive, because if they don't survive, we do not survive.
Mhm,
That's a
mhm.
big encoding there. And the next thing is, if we do a lot of that, then we have to go back and work with that the little one feels safe. It's not their responsibility anymore. And as a grown up, you don't know that all those records are playing all the time. It's like a
Mhm,
loop
mhm.
that just playing. And it's really difficult to find out. But if you start to do the inner work, you find out it's like you have the long end of, yeah, it's getting more and more easy to find out, oh, now I'm doing it again. But be- because it's life and death situations, it's not easy to release them, because it's like if you just a minute relaxes, then, oh my God, mom is going to die. You will not do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you cannot understand why you're going down with stress when you're working, when you're 40. It's like, because you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it all the time. So it's so interesting to go back and investigate, why did I get those patterns that I have, and just to recognize that I have them is an important path. And And then, of course, yeah, now you are 7 years old and in school, that's something else. Your surrounding is also the school, and you are starting to learn things. And the school, as you started to say, the school do not support our soul,
Mhm.
or not nearly our emotions either. It's like our brain and what we can do and what we can learn. It's really a very small, we only help children to do a little, to use a little of their potential.
Right, yeah,
And as
agree.
humans, we have so much potential. And that will say, if you are good in school, you will, come up in your brain and you will be good at that. And you will maybe forget that you have feelings. If you're not good in school, you will feel, I cannot follow with the others and I'm wrong. And even though you're good at feelings, the feelings will be bad because you're not fitting into the society. And society do not reckon what you're actually here for. So we lose a lot of really loving, caring, powerful people and young people the way we teach our children today. And I really hope that we will develop our teaching methods and the way we see and meet children in the future, because there is so much potential in the human being, and connection, soul, body, mind, and emotions is like, it's such, yeah, and
Well,
really beautiful creating.
there's a whole different way to educate. I mean, it's completely different
Yes.
than what we're doing. You know, we put kids in classrooms and put them in a seat and say, "Sit there for a couple hours and, do this and do this workshop." And, I mean, it's like, I rem I have a distinct memory of being in kindergarten, like, my first day of kindergarten. I was little, 5,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, "I have 12 more years of this?"
Yes, exactly.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I had to, and 12 years to a 5-year-old is like eternity.
Yes, it
I
is.
thought I thought I had been sentenced to life in prison.
Yes.
But anyway, let's go forward. Let's go forward. So we're at the 7 to teenage years. Is that a
Yeah, we
time
go
or?
up to normal when the 7 year, and then you get up to the teens, and everything is, of course, there's a lot of things happening there. Social relations, social contact with friends. You're starting to have friends much more. You're starting to have experience of things that are different from your family. So when you start in school and you see other people and other families, you start to reflect on your own family. And that means also you start to, okay, that's not good, or that's good, or something happens when you start to have some other opinions, and there will also be other grown-ups that maybe can see who you are and support you. There are so many people describing this very good teacher or
Mhm.
kindergarten person or neighbor. Or you have a possibility to actually find other people that can support you if if you do not have that support back home. And those people are like light of heart, warmth light that actually keep the fire in your own heart awake, steady. So those really good caretakers or teachers do a very good job there. Now you were talking about animals, and I was talking about animals, but they keep
Mm.
my heart open or warm or like I'm not closing totally down. And that's the same the same like teachers or other caretakers actually have that potential to, help a child to keep their heart still in contact with themselves. Just a few meeting of really being met as the person you are, that makes a big impression and keeps the light on till they are ready to develop it later on. And that's so often that I see that. So when I again work with students or clients that I work with in a child work, then I also look for where was the caregiving person that met them, that made them feel like themselves or safe or special, or because that is a positive place we can go and they can develop themselves from there. So so in that way, the school and that part where you actually start to have a circle that's bigger than your family, that's important as well. It could also be traumatic. So did you have trauma out there? So what I normally say is if you have good experiences in school, the school is very much like work. It's like it's not the private part of you, but it's where you are and you live and you learn and you have good connections. So if you have a good school, if you love to be in school or you have good friends and it's nice to be there, it's possible that you actually also like to be in a job situation because it will be normal for you. You're not, people are not teasing you. It's like, okay,
Mhm,
of course
mhm.
they love me. Of course, how nice. I'm good at this. But if you have problems in school, then it would be, oh no, those people that not really my family, they're not trustworthy. They are, oh, it's difficult. Then you will also sometimes have problems in your work because it's the same feel you go from school to work. If
Mhm.
you are having a really good family constellation, then it's possible that you actually it will be easy for you to find a very good partner because that partner would, you will find a good one from the start. Because, oh, I'm used to being in a good family relation.
Yeah.
That's continuing. But if you're not, oh yeah, then you have to do some work because then you will try to get, the same bad constellations that you're born into because it's the unsafe is the safe. It's the family. It's the family feeling of, yeah, that's how a family is. So then you have to work again, inner child work for changing the belief that a partnership should be like your parents. Because if it didn't
Mhm.
work for them, why should it work for you? So again, so if you have problems in the family, the private family, there will be a good reason to look at that pattern. So you will start to, you know, change find partners that's better for you. So your family is much connected to your grown up private life, and your school connections could be very much connected to your work situation. So if you have, so in that way, you can also go down and now what was that and what was that. So in that way, it's very interesting to look at how was school and how did you do in school and how did you do it in constellation to friends and social behaviors. So that's interesting. When you're getting to the teenage years, then it's like a 3-year-old on hormones. It's like, oh my God. But it's still like finding out. who am I, and borders, and going too far and too little, and too scared and too much, and everything at the same time, too depressive, too happy. Everything is like, and it's actually the same. The heart opens up. I love this person. Oh, it's bad and wrong. Oh no, no, it's a heartbreak, and so it's the same as the 3-year-old. It's like the world is opening big time. The emotions is opening big time. And everything is big, and the surroundings get even bigger again. And we meet new people. So in that way, it's very important that there is this deeper level of the heart opens and the sensitivity opens and the mind and the consciousness grows as well. It's like it's a big development, expanding phase, those teenage years. And what I find really interesting is that really many cultures has exactly that time around the teenage years, middle or little less, where the youngster goes out in the world to find their vision for their life. And that's often a spiritual thing. And that means that because they have this bigger opening and should find out who they are themselves, there's this contact to the soul and the divine and the spiritual path. And that's not really something that we help these young people with. The teenagers has actually a very big need for help to understand those emotions and also the contact to the spiritual world, or
Hmm.
the healing energy. So I have some healing. I'm doing my I teach a lot, and I also have taught teenagers from 13 to 17 Reiki 1 and small spiritual exercises to learn how to take care of themselves, self-healing, to understand what they sense, and also to listen to the message from the guide team. Stuff that can help them to guide them in their life. And this feeling of being calm and feeling secure. So so what I normally also teach them is the contact to what I call the ray of light. It's like a healing energy from the most divine place in the universe, connected to that, and just being connected to the guardian angel, and that angel coming down, placing itself behind the client or the child or the youngster here, and just in that way, it's like you can feel safe, and you can also have the feeling of being taken care of. And when you are safe and being taken care of, you can relax and be yourself. You can feel yourself in a secure environment again. So again, in that way, I start to train both kids down to around 7 years. I use that, and of course, grown ups. It's like a way I use myself in my 20s when I was really afraid of seeing all the dead ladies flying through the walls. I used this contact with, I didn't know what it was before later, but I just how connected with my guardian angel and felt it present behind me and felt that I was secure and that it was lighting up the path in front of me so I could go and follow the path. And I teach that to teenagers. So they always have this feeling of finding a secure place in themselves and could create a secure space around them. So teenagers has a very big opening for spiritual contact. And that's also their soul, and to listen to their soul. And we really need to help them to have that contact, because then they don't have to have all the problems that we
Mm,
other people have.
right. Yeah, it's completely ignored our whole life. But if the teenage years are that important, that's the last thing that we're helping teenagers with.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
it's fabulous that you are working with teens. I just love that. You know, we've been talking for an hour and 5 minutes.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, no, nothing to apologize. I think we could go on for another hour. I think this is so interesting, really interesting. And the work you're doing is so important. I think that when we look out on the world and when we see the problems of the world, when we see corruption, when we see war, when we see, whatever we don't like, cruelty, exploitation, child trafficking, whatever, I think it's all rooted in the inner child. I think it's all rooted in that. And
Mm,
that's why this work is so important to come back to these people out there who we don't like, including ourselves, all of us, that if we could do this inner child work and heal all of that, I think everything out there would start forming in such a different way, and all of the quote problems would like dissipate because we're acting out, you know?
mm,
We're acting out all this stuff. There's no reason to exploit and feel power over someone if we actually knew that we had this inner power and we
yes,
could reconnect that could have happened way back when we were a fetus, for gosh sakes, you
yes,
know?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's just so interesting. And the other thing that really uh, makes me think about is, I think so many things can go wrong in birth, and I think it's not just because of the mother and all of that. I think the institutionalization of the hospital birth.
Mm,
I had 3 children in the hospital. I wish I'd had them at home. I'm not saying a home birth would have been perfect, but there's something about going into a system where now you've become a like a cog in the system, and you kind of have to meet their needs. And like when my oldest daughter gave birth a year and a half ago, she was dilated and ready to give birth, but it was a Sunday and they couldn't find a doctor. And finally, the doctor came in, but there were 2 other C sections before. The baby's she's at 10 centimeters, the baby's,
mm,
crowning, and they made her wait for 2 hours. So, like, I'm not bringing this up like, oh my gosh, look at my trauma. I'm just saying these are the kind of things that happen in institutionalized settings with births because we're trying to depend on all the we become part of their procedure.
yeah.
And so I think a lot and sorry, going back to my own self, and then we gotta close, but, um, in my era mothers were knocked out. They were
Mm,
gassed.
yeah,
My mother didn't know she had a baby girl until the next
exactly.
day,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
yeah, and it's really think about the connection that is so important for the child and for the mother.
Yeah.
And it takes time if it's ever been healed, it will take time to heal. So that's it. But then just to a little good story here is also that what is the name of the women that normally take when you deliver a child? It's a
A midwife?
midwife, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have because I don't know, because I'm a biologist and I do the healing work, I have a lot of healthcare personnel that comes to have healing courses or spiritual courses or whatever. And I have a lot of midwives. And some of them actually use this. They notice, oh, the mother is not present with her soul and just help the little one to be in place. And have a prayer when the little one comes and greet
Oh, I
them.
love
Oh,
it.
welcome to the world. So I have a lot of those midwives there that actually do that. And that
Yeah.
makes me feel so loving inside and so
Yeah.
hopeful that this little one, it's in a hospital, yes, but there is the first one they meet is greeting them with love.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
there's small things that we can do that actually make a very big difference.
Yeah.
And I really love to work with those midwives, all the nurses and doctors as well. It's because when we change that system as well, when we get this spiritual thought or the soul integrated in the hospital and healthcare system, then something really happens there as well.
I think so too. It brings spirit back, brings the soul back into the medical field. It's
Yes.
become this scientific detached from the soul.
Yeah,
Just like we need to reattach to our souls, many of our institutions could really benefit
exactly.
from reattaching to the soul.
And
Yeah.
that's not the same as we should, go back in time and forget everything that we have investigated, the science and the experiences we have right now. No, I think it's time now to make the things connect again. It has been okay that it has been disconnected because, it's God's will, it's God's will. You don't have to think yourself. You just, no, 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 no. We really have to be present and awake and connect body, mind, and soul in everything, in our institutions, in our lives, in ourselves. Because when we do not have that connection, it will be the survival mode that will take over, and that's not a very good path. It will be the fighting part, and
Mhm.
it will be sorrow, and it will be, yeah. So we have to do something else now. And the good
Yeah.
thing now is when you do your inner child work, you will not continue to, spread the negative energy. You will start to say, like epigenetic, when you stop what you have learned from your parents and start to really be a soul and start to, you know, l- illuminate that out in the world and create light in others, then the sum of negativity in the world and conflict in the world will lower and the light will rise.
100%, 100%. And your work is so important. I'm so grateful to have spent this hour with you and to meet you and to really experience this work that you're doing. It's fabulous. I want to give you the last word before we close. So is there something that we didn't talk about that you want to share?
I think now we have been talking a lot about the problems, but in my book, I have a chapter about inner child work. And that will be a very good help if you have any, as a listener, have any feeling that, oh, that's right, actually, I have some problems there. I cannot really get a hold on it. Try to look a hand on it. Try to look at that book, Your Soul, Your Life. And I have a lot of healing meditations, fetus, inner child healing meditation, epigenetic, where you're affected by your mother or your father, the, the lineage from father, the lineage from mother. There you also have a lot of things where you are affected without really knowing it. And it's coming into your life as you are an embryo. So look at the book, listen to the meditation, do your self healing work, and you can heal up the most. Even though it can be hard, it's worth it. There's a lot of light, love, playfulness, and joy in that work.
It's beautiful. I love that you encourage self-healing and when we're self-healing, we're bringing in all of our guides and our angels and, we're bringing in the divine and the light, so it's not like we're sitting there on our own. And then if you want help, then they can come to you or somebody else to get help also. But I love that you encourage self-healing because I do think we all have it in ourselves.
Yes.
We may not have the will to do it ourselves, but I never really like the requirement that you have to come to me, you have to come to me if you want to be healed. No, we've been given the skills and the power to heal ourselves. And that's not to say that people like you and others can't help, but I really feel like we're really endowed. And um, so, thank you so much for your work
Thank
and
you.
I'm gonna check out your website and some of those meditations, and
You
I'll
are
have all
so
the links
welcome.
on
Yeah.
the show notes. So, thank you so much, Marja, for generously sharing, and you just have such fun energy. I appreciate being with you
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. I have been fascinated very much to be with you as well. It's so nice. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and thank you all listeners for being here. I know you were blessed by this episode, and I now close a spiritual forum.